This is Pens Down. This is where we sit with journalists, active or otherwise, and get to understand what they go through or what they went through in their line of duty. A lot happens before you get to hear the breaking news, before you get to hear that moving story or that incredible development. But journalists, by principle, are observers, not participants in the news gathering and packaging process. So they don't tell you what they go through. All you get to hear is a story behind the scenes, what has been happening to them. This is why Pens Down is here. Today I've been joined by a colleague. He's currently the public relations manager of Ghana Link Network Services Limited, and he's saddled with the firm's communications, corporate social responsibility, media relations activities, among others. Before joining the company in April 2020, he was editor of Joy Business at the Multimedia Group. He has also in the past worked with the Business and Financial Times and CTFM as deputy online editor and senior broadcast journalist, respectively. With a distinctive and passionate outlook on business development, he has spent the last 14 years or more of his career in various leadership roles, growing and developing businesses in media, revenue generation, financial engineering, and restructuring of businesses in Ghana. He is the founder and business development lead for business website www.norvanreports.com, which is the news arm of Norvan Enterprise, a PR and media relations firm he established some 6 years ago. He has also spent quite some time developing working documents in regulations and revenue generation as a consultant for private businesses. His current role with Ghana Link Network Services Limited entails highlighting trade and economic opportunities for the customs management system, known as the Integrated Customs Management System, ICUMS, which has been deployed for the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority to aid in its revenue collection while helping reduce the cumbersome process of clearing goods at Ghana's ports. A key part of his job is presenting the system as the best trade facilitating tool, not only in Ghana, but in Africa, and assisting other stakeholders such as freight forwarders, importers and exporters, and among others, including private firms, to understand the new customs management tool. He is a member of the Institute of Directors Ghana, an associate member of the Institute of Public Relations Ghana, a fellow of Bloomberg Media Initiative Africa, and a graduate of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Rhodes University, South Africa, University College of Management Studies, Graduate Institute of Management Studies, University of Ghana, Legon, as well as the Institute of Commercial Management, UK. He is currently a graduate student of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, reading project management. With me today is Norvan Acquah-Hayford. It's good to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Stephen.
I am curious. I'm going to start today because of the profile I just read. I will not start from what I consider as the opening question that I would normally use. Let me take it from here. Attrition has hit journalism big time. A lot of trained, qualified, solid professionals are abandoning the craft for public relations, corporate communications, and for some of them, they are moving into entirely different fields. I am curious, has journalism lost you to corporate communications?
Stephen, no, not at all. I don't think that journalism have lost me because I mean we're still doing the work of journalism, and I think that the best people to deal with the journalists will be the very refined journalists who have gone through the mill, and then when you cross to the other side, you are able to deal with the journalist properly because you understand the psyche and the work of a journalist, such that if a journalist had to do his work, there will not be some challenges or there will not be disagreement between the public relations professional and the journalist. I mean, most often than not, we hear the issue of, oh, they wanted me to stand down my story. And I think that if the PR professional understand the work of the journalist, and indeed the facts as have been presented are true, then I think that there will be that kind of understanding where you would say, okay, can I tell you my side of the story? And let me tell you something that I learned when I got into the media, especially in the business space. Okay. One of the key principles that I was taught at the Business and Financial Times is that we don't collapse businesses, but we rather help them to grow, especially indigenous ones, the Ghanaian ones. So the basic principle in journalism, which you know, is what is the story? Give the person the right to rebuttal, or allow the person to tell you his side of the story so that you can tell the story in a whole, not in parts. So that when you tell it in a whole, people get to understand that, okay, this story was about Kojo Mensah. We managed to get in touch with Kojo Mensah, and this is his answers to this particular issue. Then people understand what it is. So I think that having moved to the other side, because I understand how the journalists think and how their work is, the tediousness of it, the many sleepless nights that you go through to try and piece this story that you want to tell or you would like the public to know about, it gives me a better, I think I'm well placed, let me put it that way. So that when I'm dealing with my colleagues, journalists, I am better off because I understand them. There's that cooperation and understanding so that there won't be that rift that we used to find during our time when we were doing full-time journalism, and every time it was that kind of, you don't seem to understand me. You need to let me, I need this information. And sometimes we are hard pressed for time as well, because you need to go to press or the broadcast is in an hour. And you're looking for something from the public relations person, he says, take your time. And your editor is on your neck. The story must go because it's something that they are interested in. Probably it's even the headline story, especially for radio and television. And this is the reason why I tell you, Stephen, we have a lot of challenges where companies would always come back and you didn't get our side of the story. This is not what it means. A lot of the times, I tell you what, you would have contacted them, you'd have asked for their side of the story, but I wouldn't say bureaucracy. The speed with which you want to work is not their speed, because companies are also very careful. I mean, they want to be sure of what they are saying. They want to be sure that what they are saying will not rather add to tarnishing their image, but rather help to settle the issues. So I think when I got into public relations and I studied public relations, I got to understand why firms would work the way they work and have a better understanding of how media also would work. So help bridge the gap and ensure that everybody gets satisfied at the end of the day.
In the active days that you were in journalism, multimedia, Business and Financial Times, City FM, was there a time or were there instances where you were approached to kill a story for some reward?
These things happen all the time. I mean, if there's a journalist that comes to tell you that it never happens, it's not true. But I think you do have principle. And my basic principle has been, you know what, tell me your side of the story. And let me put the story together, telling your side of the story. I must be honest, there are some times that also you must look for the greater good.
Okay.
I don't need you to reward me. And I think that I'm always proud of myself, and I can say it on your network. I don't know which company that will come and say we had to reward him this amount of money to hold on or to kill a story. No. When you come to Norvan, I will tell you straight in your face that listen, this is the facts. Is it true? As long as you can confirm that it is true, because when you say it is not true, then tell me the other side of the story.
Yeah.
Even if it is true, what necessitated that or what caused that? That is what I want to understand. There are companies that I think they feel that they don't want even their story to get out there at all. You understand? Sometimes there are stories that are good stories. They're actually good stories, but may have some regulatory issues.
Yeah.
And so the firm or the individual can approach you and say, you know what, I don't need you to put the story out now. Because if you put it out, it can cost me. And this happens especially within the banking space, where they have not gotten regulatory approval from the Bank of Ghana, they can be fined. And sometimes these fines are huge. I do not want to put out some of the figures, but they are huge. And so I think that it's a positive story you are holding, because it's not all about negative stories. You need to also, as a journalist, and I have several times gotten stories that I want to publish that, you have had institutions come and say, these, if you put this thing out there, we'll get regulatory sanctions. And so please, can you hold on? And I think it's just best for every journalist to understand this, that look, it's a good story. A lot of the times I would negotiate and say, you know what, since I am the first person who have the story, you must promise me that when you get your regulatory approval, I'm still going to be one of the first people to be informed to put it out there. Because, sometimes this is what happens within the space. We work with speed and accuracy and want to also be the first to break the news. Because at the end of the day, we sell news to generate revenue so we can be paid. Because it's on this news that we are putting out there that advertisers would come to us and run adverts on these networks. So basically, that's what we do, whether it's newspaper, whether it's radio or television or a blogger. That is the principle of how you can generate your funding. So, and the more you can get, if it is online, the hits, in terms of the number of visitors on your website or the newspaper, what is the coverage and circulation? What's the total circulation you're doing? Television, of course, the reports are generated and people are looking at it and asking which of the TV stations is being watched a lot and at what time belt and all these things. So these are the things that we look out for. So if you come to me, I would negotiate and say, look, you know what? Since I am the only person who has brought this, you must, in principle, we must agree that I will be the first to be given the right to go ahead and do my story before you want to put out a press release. Because sometimes some of these companies, they forget that you got the news, you to break it, and then they kind of said, hold on. And before you say, Jack, the story is out there. Some other news outlets or a press release has been circulated that day, and so everybody has. So for me, it's one of the key things. And I'm sure if you go out there and you talk to a lot of these communication guys who have dealt with me, they'll tell you I'm very hard on that. When I get my exclusive, when I come and you have to tell me that, Norvan, can you hold on a little bit? I'll tell you that we need to have an agreement. And trust me, if you break it, the next time I won't mind you. If my fact, I check with you and you confirm the fact, that's it. But if I have to, that principle of helping you build your business, especially if you're a local firm, you must also understand the situation and know that, okay, if I've been able to go my way to be able to get the exclusive nature of a story, you don't want to deprive me of that.
How did you discover the journalist in you?
Well, that's such a story. Okay, so when I left school, I will tell you that I did my national service at Copyright Office.
Okay.
I didn't even finish the national service there. I think 3 months into the national service, I was called to transfer to the then Revenue Agencies Governing Board, which is now the Ghana Revenue Authority. In fact, the late Harry Owusu was then the executive secretary for the Revenue Agencies Governing Board. I think under Kojo Banredu, the late Kojo Banredu, who was the finance minister at the time, they set up a unit called the Revenue Agencies Governing, National Revenue Enhancement Support Team, NREST. This is somewhere, I think, 2006. 2005, 2006.
Mm.
So I was then taken and interviewed, and I had to continue my national service with them. Then I was sent to the Western region as the regional coordinator. I think
That's
after
right.
about 6 months, I came back and I was sent into the finance ministry.
Mm.
So I was working there because the NRES had its office within the finance ministry.
Yeah.
I happened to be called to be on a program on the then Vibe FM, the frequency 91.9.
That's right.
To talk on economics and all those issues. There's a gentleman called Lee Longden.
Okay.
He was the one who discovered me because Musa, who was then the producer, invited me after 3 visits to the station. I think one was during the budget, and then one they were talking about economic issues. I remember I was in there with Kofi Wayo, Dr. Pele, and there was another gentleman, I've forgotten his name. And so one of the days when we finished, the London just walked to me and said, "Look, you know what, gentleman, you have a nice voice for radio. And I think when I listen to you, you can do better in radio." And I said, "Hey, somebody who is doing civil servant work, that kind of stuff, what do you need me for radio for?" But let me say that I had done my radio training at then Conti FM at KUST. That's where I did my training. In fact, over there, actually what I was doing, I was playing jazz music.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was playing jazz music on Sunday evening, and then I think Thursday night or so. Yeah, so when I did my training, when I finished, and then I remember they then asked me to come and help with the newspaper review, with the host and all that. So those were the 2 things that I was doing, newspaper review on, it was, I think 96.4 or so, that was the frequency. Now, that radio station, the frequency doesn't belong to, because, around that same time, I think NCA came and said that you cannot have 2 radio stations on a university campus, because on KNUS campus, they had Conti FM and Focus FM.
Yeah.
So when it came up and Conti belonged to Unity, whilst Focus belonged to both the SRC and administration. So when the issue came up, or the directive came from NCA, they asked that, look, you know what? You needed to forgo one of it. Obviously, Unity Hall had to sell off Conti. Because the administration was going to go with Focus FM, which is still in operation on KNUST campus. Yeah. So that's where I had my training, let me put that way. So when Lee Longden said to me, he said, "Oh, you can come in and then maybe we'll try." So in fact, my first program was a sit-in for KSM. We used to have a program on Vibe FM. I've forgotten the name. I think the tagline was "Truth Hidden shall definitely rise again."
Oh,
that was the tagline, but I've forgotten the name of the program. Something right or something, but I recall. So that was when I did the first sit-in where I had to pick a national issue and talk about it. So I think I walked in there, picked the newspaper, read it, and then just went and spoke my mind and left.
But you didn't think for starting, quote unquote, your career officially in journalism, going into the shoes or holding the fort for KSM was too big a task? Because he was huge.
Really, no. I tell you what, it was too big a task for me, because I'd been going on the morning show in and out, and then they asked me to sit in on that show. I mean, this is KSM. He was big at that time. When KSM wasn't there, it used to be Kojo Mensah. Kojo Mensah used to be the guy that used to sit for him. So you can imagine this young boy who is being asked to, come in, because Lee Longden himself, or Longden, used to do it. And then I think one time he just said, "I want you to do it." Because when I talk to you, the way you express yourself and some way you talk about some of the issues, we wanted you to. So I think my first show, I picked on a topic it was one topic in the Business of Financial Times. And because that show was free your mind for 30 minutes and then open the phone lines for 30 minutes. That was the structure. So it was an hour program on Vibe FM, when Vibe FM used to be at the Pyramid House, just opposite the Nima police station, or will I say the president's residence. So that was where Vibe FM was. And then gradually, one day they sat me down and said, "Okay, we wanted you to now do the morning show, because the then host Kujo Mensah had left, and then one other guy was also doing it, was leaving. So my cook, who was the CEO of the station, came and said, look, Charlie, look, come and take this thing. And I said, part-time or full-time? So no, think about it, full-time. I said, hey. Really, I went home. I was like, okay. Look, I love to talk. That's me.
Yeah.
You would always be arguing with my people, trying to state my point and all that. So I was like, I mean, really, do I love to come and sit there and do, office work all the time? What kind of office work do I want to do? After a lot of, reflection, I just said, I was going to take the job at Vibe FM. I mean, so I spoke to my good friends, of some of my friends at the Ministry of Finance, Henry, I think Foster, and all those other guys. We all came in there around the same time. They were working even with one was with I think debt recovery, and then the other guys, they were with the budget implementation support team. Anthony Cabo. Then Martin James Akosa, the deputy minister, they were then the head for the National Revenue Enhancement Support Team. And so, I mean, when I was brought in fact, when I was brought to Accra back, I was first sent to, I think, the then Internal Revenue Office around Dansbar. And then later I was brought to the Ministry of Finance. So I think I spoke to my guys and said, look, you know what? I'm going for greener pastures. I was leaving government work. I want to go and do media. So I went in and started the morning show. So this is how I started as a presenter. As a presenter, purely presenter, nothing to do with the newsroom and all that. Worked there for a while and then moved to Ghana Web. In fact, when I joined Ghana Web, we didn't have a newsroom. I was employed as an administrative assistant to the then country director for Ghana Web. In fact, Ghana Web basically was doing what we call aggregation around that time, taking news from other news outlets in Ghana, and they were just putting it there. And I remember in one of our meetings, the issue came up that, look, why don't we set up the newsroom in Ghana? Because we're going to get to the point where you can have a newsroom or a media outlet in Ghana say, you can't take our stories again. Ghana Web should be able to generate its own stories. So it was actually during my time, we did the interviews to employ the first editor for Ghana Web, who needed to come in and then also drive and see how we can set up a newsroom. But I didn't last there. In fact, I think within about 3 months or even less, I was then approached by Kofi Owusu, who is now the GNA general boss, the head of GNA now. He exited from Joy FM as programs director. And I said, look, you know what? We're setting up a radio station in Kumasi called Ultimate Radio. And I used to follow you when you were at Vibe. But I used to listen to you a lot. And we're going to Kumasi, and I needed you to become the morning show host in Kumasi. We're going to do purely English. I mean, I like to take adventure. One of my friends will tell you that, I mean, if I'm convinced, I don't care about the money. I would leave and join you. So I was like, okay, I want to be part of a team of people that could point at and say, we started this. Because I'm proud to see the newsroom at Ghana Web now doing very well. They have their own newsroom and the kind of things they are doing today. I look back, and anytime I met Eddie, one of the editors, I said, Eddie, you remember when you came for that interview? When we organized the interview somewhere around the National Service Secretariat, around there, and then we will laugh over it. And then I'm like, yeah, I mean, these were things, ideas that came up, and today I'm proud to see what it is. So I was like, Ultimate Radio, why not? I'd like to do it. So I resigned from Ghana Web, and then I left for Kumasi. I think it was in 2011 to join the establishment of Ultimate Radio. In fact, I was the first person to open the mic officially on the radio station at Ultimate Radio after that morning devotion. Current affairs programming I opened the mic. I remember that was in December 2011. I think it was 15. No, it wasn't 15. It was somewhere around 16 thereabout. And then said, well, this is the ultimate morning show with me. At that time, I was using the name Acquah-Hayford. You know why? I didn't use the Norvan Acquah-Hayford, and you should understand.
You wanted to connect with the community.
Exactly, with the people of Ashanti. So I didn't want anybody to come having it difficult to mention the name Norvan. Like, who is this brofo guy who has appeared in the already? You're coming to speak English, and you are coming with the names that we can also connect, because you're hearing names like Captain Smart, Kwame Dinkra, you hear Kojo Kwame and all that. So I also went in with the name Nana Acquah-Hayford. Of course, I'm a Wednesday born. So I added Nana to my name. Of course, Nana Acquah-Hayford. So I just decided to use the Hayford and then forget about Norvan Acquah. So Ultimate Radio, I worked in there. I think after a year or two, a year and a half on the morning show, one day I just felt, we're not doing business news. Where it was just the general news. Yawansu Diabo, who was then the news editor, general news that we're doing. And since Kofi also wanted to come and do the morning show, I needed to become his producer. So if I was, and then he had made me the operations manager for the station. So the workload was becoming a lot. But I just said to him one time that, look, I think I would like to take up the business news. But one of the things I must tell you that one of the programs that I established in Kumasi on Ultimate Radio was, I used to call myself the unofficial mayor of Kumasi.
Wow.
The unofficial mayor of Kumasi. Because what I was doing at the time was to visit places where there were challenges. And I brought those issues on the morning show to be discussed. We called in the, the authorities who needed to deal with those issues. So if there was an area that has not seen water for, let's say, months, we go in there, we talk to the people in the area, and then we play it on radio, and then get in the Ghana Water or the mayor and his people to come and answer. When you come into our program, that particular program, it was about, tell me when you resolve the issue. We are not interested in the challenges any longer. When? Give the people timelines. If you do it tomorrow, and when you give us timelines, we'll come back to you. Ask you if you have done it or you haven't done it. And we'll get the people in the area. So in fact, that's how I made a lot of friends. The unofficial mayor of Kumasi, Nana Acquah-Hayford, made a lot of friends, doctors and all that in Kumasi, introduced the health bit on the morning show and all that, with the help of Kofi Usu, who was the general manager. He was very supportive at the time. I mean, I learned a lot from him. And from there, I came back to Accra. When Vibe FM was changed to Live FM.
Yeah.
I was brought in to become head of production for the morning show. I mean, when they contacted me, I was like, okay, time to go back to Accra. So I came in. And let me tell you the bit. When I was coming to Accra, I said to myself that, I remember I told one of my friends, close friends, Amu, I told him that, listen, I'm going to Accra, I'm going to join Live FM. But I tell you what, I'm going to work at Live FM for only 1 year. From there, I should be at City FM, Joy FM, or TV3.
Wow.
Can you believe that I started Live FM in June, I think 2013, thereabout, or 2014. And exactly 1st July, the following year, I was at City FM. I mean, I don't know whether it's God or what, but I say, look, some of the things that we say, we must be careful.
Yeah, there's power in positive pronouncements.
Exactly. It says, even the Bible tells us that speak the things that are not as though they were.
They were, yeah.
So I told him, I said, 1 year, exactly 1 year, I must be at these 3 stations. And amazingly, 2 of them, somewhere by May the following year, had contacted me. I went for interview and everything at TV3 and then City FM. And I just said, okay, you know what, let me take the City FM for now. So I went in there to the business desk. And I think that when I started the business desk thing at Ultimate Radio.
Okay.
And I came into Live FM. Even though I was head of production for the morning show, I did not stop. I continued to write, even for the news team, do stories, business stories, interviews that we did on the morning show. I was writing the stories myself.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was a bit difficult. And I remember Nana Boache, when I joined, City FM. He said to me, I remember he and OJ. OJ, I remember when I wrote my first story, and then they said to me, look here, it must be short, straight to the point. So your lead, your body, and then intro the SOT. You can't, why? Are you writing thesis? Are you writing thesis? We don't like thesis, we don't have a lot of time. The news bulletin is 10 minutes, and we must put in not less than 7 to 8 stories. I said, hey, but how many minutes for each story? They said, yes, so your sound should be more than 30 seconds. I remember very well. And I think these guys, together with Vivian Kailoko, who was the head of business desk, really helped me to be able to get myself shaped properly for the business desk. Wow. And I'm mentioning these guys because I think that at any point in my journey, all of them played a major role. When I worked in there for, I think, a little over 2 years, then I got a call from Business and Financial Times that, look, we're looking for somebody for the online. Live FM had a radio station, a tree radio station, and then was looking at a TV station as well. And I think that at the time, if I really look at the staff numbers, Live FM had more staff than that of City. But I would also tell you that I tell people it's not about the money for me, because I came from Live FM and took the same salary with City FM. Does this really happen in the industry? You would have said that
normally it should progress. It should
exactly. But I took the same salary. I did not. I mean, initially I was pushing for an increase. I remember when the HR was like, "Oh, well, we can take you." I could have just said, "You know what? Take your job. Let me go and sit at my Live FM and then make my money and hope that they will even increase it for me." Because at that time I was even negotiating for an increase. But for me, it's the experience I'm looking for. And the ability to learn on the job, to better myself, and the opportunities that are in there. So I moved from Live to City. I started on the same salary that I was receiving at Live FM. And also came in as just a senior broadcast journalist to be under somebody's leadership and learn. And Vivian was great, I must say. Bernard Avle, great. I mean, I worked with these guys, learned a lot from them, Nana Boache, OJ, and all the guys that were there at the time. They were of great help, because then I was coming into the radio to now do full-time radio news in the business side. So opportunity to now put what I had learned in school into practice, and also understand how businesses, behave, and when you're doing their stories, how, because the writing of business stories are different from the general political and health and all those stuff. In my journey from City, I said I'd love to have the newspaper experience as well. So I went into Business and Financial Times, even though I was the deputy online editor to Abekwe, who you interviewed some time ago. He was the online editor, I was his deputy. Because he had a lot of responsibility for the newspaper, I had to take up the full responsibility for the online and ensure that we could also be in real time and all that. And then development of the website and all that we looked at as a team, and money to change it and all that. So the newspaper experience was one that I was also looking for in my career progression. Because I remember when I was leaving City FM, I said, okay, do I want to remain a senior broadcast journalist forever, as I told you initially? So I said, okay, they are going to offer me a deputy online editor. That gives me another step forward. And you're talking of No Mean newspaper as the business lead paper in this country, Business of Financial Times. So I went in, had to now learn the art of writing for the newspaper, which is entirely also different from writing for the radio. Radio, short script, voice. But then, because we were doing online, even radio, our online, if you check the radio stations and they are online, the scripts that are there, they're still straight to the point.
Yes.
You can see the difference between them and the Business of Financial Times and let me now blow my trumpet a bit, and the Norvan reports and all that, because of the art of writing and how
That's
we've
right.
gone through the mail. The way we write. It's the reason why a story that you would hear breaking this evening on radio, tomorrow you can pick the newspaper and have better understanding of it in the newspaper, because the radio, Charlie, they don't have a lot of time. So and television as well. So it's short, straight to the point. After I worked in there for a while, got a call from Emma Morrison that, I'm also looking for an editor to join the group of editors at Joy Business. I said, wow, wonderful. I mean, why not? So we had a conversation for almost a year. It was back and forth, until I finally agreed that, okay, I would join the multimedia group. So that was my journey.
You've done 15, 16 years in journalism. How many more years do you want to do before you drop your pen?
When you're a writer, you never drop the pen. I think the pen is dropped when you are saying goodbye to the end, when your maker has called you.
That's
because
right.
I mean, here I am. I set up Norvan Reports. Basically, I looked into the market and then I was seeing that, okay, there's some few gaps, some few things that needed to be done. I mean, even in my work when I was in full time, let me put it that way, at multimedia and the rest, because of editing and the rest, I could not do a lot of the things for which reason I was brought in, which was writing feature stories and specialized, picking reports and trying to put up the stories in the report in terms of writing for the online. So I remember very well that when I spoke to Nanama, who was one of my good friends, who was then a lecturer at I think GIJ, and then also Dr. Kobe Mensah and the rest. When I spoke to them, I was exiting, media. I remember what they said to me. They said, "You don't have to leave completely. This is the time for you to impact on others. And whilst you are impacting, you still be there to do what you've got to do." So in fact, they put me into thinking. And let me say that in my working life, let me now put it, I don't know whether he'll be happy for me to say, there's a man who really helped directing me. At any point in time, he would look at me and say, "Norvan, it's time to move."
Okay.
So when I left Live to City, he said it's time to move. When I was leaving City, it's the same man who said, "Look, you've done what you've got to do. It's time to move." And I need him to tell me that before I make the movement. That is how I did it. He's like a godfather to me. He's really directed me. He was the one who gave me the idea and said, "You can set up something because you still have something within you. You don't have to go out completely." And this is Ken Thompson. And let me say, he's been a great father. I mean, he said, "Norvan, I like the way you do your interviews. I like the way you write your stories. And I want to help you, shape." And so you've seen me make a lot of movement. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 offers. I'll take it to him. We'll discuss it. He will tell me, "Go and come back. But go and think about these things." And he will have questions for me that I need to go back and answer them. At the time we'll finish the discussion and I'll finish giving the answers, he's able to point me to say, "Okay, move here. This is where you need to go." And if it's time to move, he's the man that will pick the phone and call me, or he'll ask me, "Oh, come to my office. We'll have a conversation." He'll ask me, "How many years have you been here?" I'll tell him, and he said, "How is it going?" We'll have all the conversations. Then he's able to tell me, "Look, it's time to move."
Wow.
And I got to move. And he's been a great man who has really helped in my career within the journalism field. I'm very happy that I met him and Mr. Jackson, Joe Jackson. I mean, they've been of immense help in guiding me in my career path.
Should we license journalists?
Why not? I think we need to be able to know those who are journalists, because I've always said that the difference between a presenter Because a lot, if you check within our industry, a lot more of our presenters have not been to journalism school.
I remember when
They haven't.
at a point when you were talking about your journalism journey, you emphasized that point well that you started as a presenter as though you wanted to decouple it from a journalist.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, and this is what took me to GIG. You know why I went to GIG? I would have said that, I have the qualifications, economics and all, blah, blah, blah. So what is the point? And I'm writing. But in the newsroom, you would always hear when we went to journalism school, at GIG or at the School of Communications. And one day, I sat down and I was reflecting. I remember I walked into Salasi's office, who is the managing editor for Business and Financial Times. And I said, you know what? I think I want to go to GIG or any of these journalism institutions. Maybe that could also help make me better and get an understanding of what these people talk about in this newsroom almost every time. You know, when you are having arguments with them, and I could understand them because they always want to stick to the ethics of the profession.
Yeah.
This is the ethics, and this is what we must go by. You know, and so they would always raise the issues. And in fact, that's what took me to go and do a top-up in journalism at GIG, even before I did my master's in public relations.
Okay.
Understand? So I was like, okay, you know what? I need to understand this whole thing that they talk about. So let me go and start from the basics. So I went to do 2 years for a BSc communication journalism option. And I think that has contributed and has given me, has shaped my mindset. And I think that anybody who is practicing journalism, or even if you're doing blogging, as long as you're writing for the information of the public, you must understand, even if it's a crash refresher course that you need to go and do, why not find one of these institutions and go in there and get it done?
You have done almost 16 years. If we are to go back into time, 17 years, would you still choose journalism?
Why not? I love to talk. Today, if I'm sitting, you see, that's why I'm saying that even if you have a presenter who is a journalist, he's refined. Yeah. He's refined. On radio, or on television, you will see how he does his work as again, even if he's doing the Akan language. You know, that's why we have a lot of the issues.
That's
the
right.
local dialect, especially the Akan one.
Yes.
The way news is read on certain stations, you know, and how they present programs when they are running interviews, the way they go about it.
And sometimes the way they even trivialize things like rape.
You know, it's like, it's nothing. But that's why I'm saying that a trained journalist who is doing that Akan language. So that's why I love when I go on, let's say GBC, any of their local, you are trained. So you understand when you are telling the story. It is also because over the years, you will come to understand, Stephen, that most of those who were reading the news on the Akan stations or the local stations were not trained journalists. Because they can take the script in English and translate it into Tree, only to know what's up. When they start, my brother, they just go. But I'm telling you that if I have to come back again, I think I'll consider journalism again. I have loved it. And that's why I'm still in there. I haven't left totally.
Social media has redefined the frontiers of journalism. And it has also launched the journalism careers of millions untrained across the world called citizen journalists. Today, some of them are bloggers and all that. How much of a challenge or an opportunity does social media represent to mainstream journalism?
I think there's a big challenge there because you see, they are doing real-time coverage. So something is breaking, there's a story breaking by, let's say somewhere in the Volta region, and they are there with their phones and they are recording and they are live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you can think about. So unlike before where you get a call, oh, there's a fire outbreak at so and so. Now, even we who were sitting in the newsroom got tip-offs from social media, which is good. But you see, the disadvantage they have is that they don't have links to the authorities or the people who must speak on these matters. So they will say, oh, there's fire, there's fire, there's fire. But when I get there with the camera, we're looking at what caused it, what is being done. So you hear there's fire, and the fire service are not here. They are here and they don't have water in their tank. And you know those kind of stories, especially when there are fire outbreaks, especially around the Makola area. All these back and forth. But you realize that when you follow the media house, you get a better appreciation and understanding of what the issues are, what was the cause effect, you know, how it's being dealt with, what are the challenges. And of course, the media will go to the extent of ensuring that they bring closure to these stories. Okay? But the citizen journalists, they show you the video, after that they close their phone, they leave.
And they don't observe any ethical injunctions.
Exactly, as I told you. I mean, that's the problem. So social media as it is, it has two sides of the coin. And as I told you, because sometimes we've gotten even leads to stories from social media. So somebody comes and rants on social media, and then you read it, and then you're able to say, okay, really, there's a story in here. So we need to begin to follow it, chase this person, ask this person, how true is this? How true is that? You understand? So even today, there are technocrats, big, people of repute who also vent on social media that helps us tease out certain stories that you want to follow up on. So it is the necessary evil. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Social media has become the necessary evil. So I think that what is important for us is also take advantage of it and see how we can use it to our advantage as media. Should we be able to let people trust and say that even if I go on Facebook, I want to go and check on Norvan Report's Facebook wall to confirm some of these things that are happening? Because you want to be the reference point.
That's right.
Oh, when I go on Twitter, you know, when I used to be at in one of the radio stations, I won't mention the name, what happened was we became almost the reference point. I remember when ADB was looking to be sold way back in 2015 thereabout.
Okay.
Because we covered that story extensively. I remember when I meet people who tell me that every morning they tuned in to the business news because they knew they were going to have an update as to what was happening to the sale of ADB. And we were very consistent. Morning, afternoon, evening, we brought an update to the issue. We followed it. So they were like, we went, because we wanted to follow and understand what was happening, we always in the morning were looking forward to hear the business news. And there's also when we miss the afternoon, we'll come back in the evening because we know we'll hear something concerning the ADB deal that I mean, the confusion was all over the place at the time. So you want to become the reference point. So even on social media, you ought to, sometimes I tell people it's not about the speed, it's about accuracy. You must have accuracy over speed.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, a story is breaking and the radio people and the TV people are there with their cameras and they are covering. So it means that they have speed over the newspaper who is waiting to come up in the next morning. You get it?
I get you.
You still will pick the newspaper and you'll be amazed some of the things that they will write that you will not get from the radio or television, that news that you watched. So I think that media houses in this country have to begin to look at accuracy so that even if I am the last to tweet on an issue, I want people to read mine and say, Norvan Reports gave us this kind of details, and we think that it was one of the best.
Let me pull the brakes here. This has been PENSDOWN. Norvan Acquah-Hayford. Too many issues, too many perspectives, insight, and deep thoughts. I'm really honored to have had you on this platform today. Thank you very much for joining me today. This has been Pens Down. Here we talk the journeys of journalists. We try to understand all that they go through, some of the behind the scenes issues that affect and impact on the work they do. We'll be back again another time with another colleague who will take us through his or her journalism journey. Thanks for joining us.